Good afternoon. This presentation is by myself, Helen Ross, and Radhika Dande, Brady Hedinger, and Austin Lin. Our professor is Elizabeth McLean, and our case study analysis is the Illinois Institute of Technology boiler plant built in 1950 by Mies van der Rohe. A brief bio of Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. He was born in Germany. He was actually never formally trained as an architect. He was the son of a stonemason and actually worked in his father's stonemason workshop. He also worked with Peter Behrens, which is where he met Walter Gropius and Le Corbusier, and worked on several projects then. But the Great Depression of 1933 kind of put a quash on all of that. And so he worked at the Bauhaus with Walter Gropius, and actually was the final director of the Bauhaus until the Nazi interventions of pretty much shutting down the school and running pretty much all of the non-Nazi sympathizers pretty much out of the country. Mies was offered a job at the new budding Illinois Institute, and he accepted the job on the condition that he would be able to design and build pretty much the entire campus. His name was not originally van der Rohe, it was actually Maria Ludwig Mies, but because in German Mies means lousy, he did not think that was commensurate with his stature as a prolific designer in Berlin. So he took over his mother's maiden name of Rohe, and that kind of elevated his status in the elite world of Berlin and Germany. And he immigrated to the United States in 1937 and became the architect in residence there. Next slide.
Okay, so basically this slide states about the style of architecture and the special features of the boiler plant. The style of architecture, the architect used he used the real battleground of the spirit as the architecture. And as we move forward, the special features of the boiler plant, the boiler house IIT, he completed the construction in 1950. Mostly the steel frame structures were used in it, and the location alongside the railway lines was chosen so that the fuel could be delivered directly to the building. Later he expanded it, but still the interior of the power plant remains unchanged to the present day, and present visitors with a special experience. In this construction, the Romplan principle was being used. Each of the plates affords view across to the other levels. We have mentioned few details of the boiler plant. The next slide is consists of the site context. We have mentioned 4 years and have stated the information in the year 1900. A few blocks are seen. The orange blocks are the IIT campus buildings. As we move forward in the 1950, we can see that we can see many blocks. So gradually, the supply of the energy to the we can see the railway track which is passing by the site. It was because the fuel can be directly go to the boiler plant. And in the year 1965, the area became much bigger, and so the boiler plant was in great demand. And in the year 1980, the purple color buildings those were the psychology buildings, they were completely removed, and the IIT campus got established. And it was the major key point that we got the railway track besides the campus.
So this is the modern day context and transportation map. So the last slide that you saw was ended in the 80s. So you can see how this currently looks modern day. The important features of this map are the campus, which is highlighted in yellow, the rest of the city, which is blue, the parks are green, and our building, the heating plant, is highlighted in red. You can see on the left side and the bottom, you can see the main streets that intersect the campus, as well as the interstate and the baseball field, which I felt contextually was important enough to include in the map. And of course, Lake Michigan on the far right side. And it should be noted that it is true north. So you are looking north is up. But this just kind of provides modern day context and transportation for the site and the campus itself. Next slide.
Okay, so the Romplin principle, during the second extension, the interior was arranged following the Romplin principle, which is basically just the design of spaces on the inside. And the rooms were basically evolved around like a central stairway system, which allowed visual connections among the different levels and platforms. Next slide.
And this slide shows kind of a basic upper and ground floor plan on the left. Essentially, the boiler plant has been through multiple remodels and iterations, and even though it was built in 1950 and finished, I guess, over 5 years, it was not officially used as a boiler until 1991. And the boiler design in of itself, the add-ons have been kind of controversial, whether Meese actually designed those or if they was not designed according to the specifications. So again, a lot of controversy. And currently, the preservation entity in Chicago are in a debate over whether to demolish the smaller box-like building on the southwestern corner. And that was essentially designed as a nuclear, underground nuclear testing facility. And so that is in jeopardy of being demolished to make room for a new commuter plane, commuter train that they've been talking about for at least 10 years to make the transportation circulation easier for surrounding campus and the residents, as well as the attendees of the White Sox Chicago Stadium goers. So the building we see now is not as, on this slide, is not as it looks now. Next slide. Population demographics, kind of a busy slide, but essentially some information I got was from the 2010 to the 2000 to 2010 census. And what it showed that was 85% of what's called the Bronzeville neighborhood. And the name kind of speaks for itself because of the brown Black folks, African Americans who had fled the South due to Jim Crow up north to cities like Chicago and Detroit. So Blacks accounted for 85% of the neighborhoods surrounding the campus, which includes Bronzeville, Douglas, and Oakland. And the population actually peaked up into the 1950s and is gradually dropped off because of the lifting of housing restrictive covenants that pretty much kept Blacks confined to those certain zip codes, including Bronzeville. And because of the lifting of that covenant, as well as the tearing down of the Robert Taylor public housing complex and several others, that was the reasons for the dramatic decrease in the African-American community. But as they exited, a dramatic influx of whites, Hispanics, and Asians. But in this, the 20th and 21st century, the Black population is increasing again because of jobs availabilities and regentrification and increased and improved transportation and housing. Next slide. This is our placeholder for our collage. Our collage wouldn't do the pixels, but we'll pin that on the board.
So this slide is basically just illustrates the weather patterns throughout the year. It just gives you the average sunshine, which doesn't account for shading, which is a big thing in Chicago because they do get a lot of clouds. It also shows that average rainfall and the average snowfall. And you could correlate these slides with the heat production from the boiler plant. Okay, next slide. And then this slide just shows sun path diagram for the average path of the sun during the fall time. That's about it. Next slide.
So we have mentioned the construction materials which were used in the boiler plant. The first one is structural steel frame. So the structural steel frame is typically consisting of vertical columns and horizontal beams, which are bolted or welded together in a rectilinear grid. Steel beams are horizontal structural members that resist loads applied directly to their axis. The second material is the glass curtain wall, also known as movement frame. So basically, a movement frame is a specific type of construction material used in rigid connections between its component members. The third one is the brick curtain wall. In the brick curtain wall, the brick are supported on the foundation and run past the floors, which attachments at the floor, which isolates the vertical deflection of the building from the wall. This concept eliminates the need for perimeter floor beams that are designed to carry the vertical load of the brick. The fourth one is the steel frames, which is also known as hollow structural section. So, hollow structural section, also known as HSS, is a type of metal profile with a hollow cross section. Basically, HSS can be circular, square, or rectangular sections, although other shapes such as elliptical are also available. The corners of hollow structural sections are heavily rounded, having a radius which is approximately twice the wall thickness. And the last material is the curtain wall. We have mentioned, we have shown the curtain wall detail. This is the to the left side is the section of the curtain wall detail, and to the right, but to the right side, we have mentioned how the curtain wall looks. So basically, the curtain wall encloses the space within a building, but does not support the roof. It is often associated with the glass window framing. It is commonly understood that the glass has no ability to carry building loads. The wind, earthquake, and the thermal loads are transferred from the glass to the gits and the mullions.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.